Hello everyone, this is one more episode of Let's Talk About It. Thank you very much for your participation. Today we'll be talking about telepathy, or psychic ability, which means a direct communication of thoughts and feelings between people's minds, right? Without the need of speaking, writing, or using any gesture. We'll be talking about telepathy, which is a very rich topic. But it's important to say in the beginning of our activities that don't believe in anything, not even in what we say here in our debate. Experiment, have your own personal experiences. This is the principle of disbelief. To talk about the energies to talk about the telepathy today, let me introduce you our team. Jade Curvelo has been working as a volunteer at ASSIPI since 2011 and as a teacher, speaker, and researcher since 2003. Welcome, Jade.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for having me again here in this episode.
Good. João Saravia is speaking from Juba, South Sudan, North Africa, where he's been working as a strategy developer for supply chain for Doctors Without Borders. João has been working as a volunteer at the ASSIPI since 2017. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It, João.
I had to mute myself. Welcome, Mario and Jader. Thank you for inviting me again to participate. It's always a pleasure to be with you, sharing information that is very helpful for our practical daily use.
Very good. Very nice to have you back. Cesar Schoenemann is speaking from Germany. He has been studying, teaching, and researching Conscientiology since 1993. Has been volunteering at the ASSIPI since December 2020. Welcome, Cicero.
Hello, everyone, and nice to be here to talk about telepathy.
Very good, people. So let's get started. But before, it's important to say that our debate is based on the new science, Conscientiology, right? What is Conscientiology? Conscientiology is a science that studies the consciousness as a whole, right? Consciousness is me, you, is everyone in human life, all conscious beings in intra and extra-physical dimensions, right? To study Conscientiology, Professor Valdo Vieira created a new paradigm as the scientific paradigm was not enough to study the consciousness, right? As it wasn't a very broad study. Consciential paradigm is focused on bioenergies, multidimensionality, pluriexistentiality, self-research, cosmoethics, universalism, and holosoma, right? Multidimensionality because we manifest ourselves in multiple dimensions. Pluriexistentiality because we consider our retro lives, right? The lives we have before, this present one, and the plan for the future lives. Conscientiology has more than 20 consciential-centric institutions, each of them specialized in a subject of research. We are ASSIPI. ASSIPI is a consciential-centric institution specialized in the study, research, and development of practical use of parapsychism, aiming at the major use of self-parapsychism, right, which is indispensable attribute for conscientious evolution. And as part of ASSIPI, we have the ASSIPI in English project, which is aimed to promote the ideas of conscientiology worldwide. The project is specialized, focused on this study, research, and useful practice of parapsychism. So let's get started with our today's topic, telepathy. But I would start by defining the term, right? Which is telepathy is a parapsychic ability. The term was first coined in 1982 by Friedrich Mayers, one of the founders of Society for Psycho Research. He earlier referred to this term as thought transference, but he wrote a book and then he defined the term as telepathy, among other studies. He was studying in the beginning, at this time, right, by the end of 19th century, and having lots of experiments with people also from the Institute of Paris, in which participated Charles Hinchet, among others, right? So it was a very important moment for the parapsychic research in Europe. And then comes out with this term. And as I said, it's a parapsychic ability, but let's begin by defining what is parapsychism. The talkers would like to start by defining parapsychism.
Yeah, I could say something is basically when we talk about parapsychism, we are dealing with abilities that goes beyond the physical perceptions, the physical body. So many times is also connected to extrasensorial perceptions or development of perceptions that we have beyond the five senses. So this is basically the idea of parapsychism. There is a lot of possibilities. There is a lot of connections with energies, with multidimensionality and several other themes. And I think part of them we are going also to talk today in this meeting.
I think I'm muted. Okay, now I was muted. I think that we should start for the newcomers to understand well what telepathy is. Let's start by defining the things that involve telepathy. The first thing is important for us to talk about our bioenergetic bodies, right? Because we have the physical body, like we talked about Losoma, one of the pillars of the consciential paradigm, but it's important to focus now on the whole soma. So we have the soma, we have the negosoma, the psychosoma, and negosoma, the soma, the body of energies, right? The whole chakra energies, and the psychosoma, the soma of the emotions, and the mental soma, right? Which is the most subtle body. João, would you like to explain this paraphysiology for people to understand exactly how telepathy works?
Sure, I could do that. The I think that when we talk about the physical body, the soma, it's easy for us to identify, right? But there we also have energy that is around this body, and that's when we start defining these other three bodies outside of the soma itself. Usually when we are in a conscious state doing our daily activities and movement and concentrating on things and talking like we are right now, these bodies are very linked together, so you don't see much difference in between them. But we can actually go to the extremes of having these other bodies being projected outside of our physical body itself, and go to other places. When we have this connection of these bodies is when we are able to easier use our parapsychism. So again, I think Cicero has already touched on that, but we usually have perception with our senses. So with our eyes, our ears, our touch, we get information about what is around us. Um, but we can also get information without the senses, and telepathy would be one of those things. And how does that happen? When your bodies start to detach, these different bodies and layers start to detach, is when you get more open to receive information that is not coming via our senses, and then you use parapsychism. So telepathy would be that. is receiving information that is out there. Someone is thinking something. We're all thinking something right now. And with our physical senses, we cannot get that information. We need actually a physical stimulus like sound to get the information of what someone else is thinking. But if you're using telepathy, you don't need to use your senses. You'll just get that information directly in your consciousness, from consciousness to consciousness. The interesting thing is that there are other consciousness that are around us that don't have a physical body at this moment in time. But they also have their thoughts, and we will be able to communicate with these extra physical consciousness as well, because from consciousness to consciousness, there is communication, even if you don't have, if you're not using your physical senses. So you don't actually need a physical body to do telepathy.
If you permit,
Very good.
I would
All
like
right.
to something that our friends are talking. That of course we are talking about the consensual paradigm, but there is a concept in physics that matter is energy. So to understand our bodies, to understand, to have more information, or if you have doubt about the consciousness has, if consciousness has other bodies, you just think that one of this body acts in the specific dimension. For example, the denser body is our soma, our physical body, and the energetic bodies is a more subtle body, and then you have other bodies, as Mario presented, psychosoma and mental soma. Is one of the reasons it's possible to have this communication between consciousness, extraphysical consciousness, or even intraphysical consciousness. I don't know if I was clear, but it's there's two there are two things in the universe: energy and consciousness only.
And based on that, it's important to say, Shada, that we have our soma, right, which is the physical body, the one we can see here in the physical dimension, but also a replica, which is the same body in psychosoma form, like in energetic form. So we have a para hand, para body. We say para, everything that is beyond the physical, right? Para is beyond the physical. So we have a para head, para hand, para arm, para leg, para feet. We have absolutely a replica of our physical body, energetically speaking. And that's why we perceive and we change energies and thoughts. And then we're going to talk about Thozine is one of the theories of Conscientiology as well. So that's the reason why we exchange energies and information in these energies through our more subtle bodies, right? Cicero, could you let's talk a bit more about the what involves having a para body and how it works.
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing I'd like to just start is, for many people, they don't use too much. They just they use, but not consciousness. And you can be aware, and you can really just use our other bodies with the characteristics they have also. So many times we just use more our physical body. If I want to put my hands up or something, or speak, but many times we can do, I could say, more things, advanced things, enhanced things compared to what's the limitation of the physical body. So I think this principle, these ideas, is also connected to how we use the body. Okay, so we can develop techniques, we can develop practices that we just get more connected to our entire body. That's the holosoma, the set of bodies that we are able to manifest our consciousness. So these bodies, I think the most closer is the energetic body. when we manifest our energies. So many times it's more simple to perceive, to have perceptions related to energetic bodies. Sometimes an energetic impact or perception of energies in a different place. Some place has better energies, some other place not too bad, not too good. And then I could say, but this depends for people to people, which is the best ability they have, what's easier. For one people, it's easier to perceive the energies. For others, it's also easier to perceive the presence of extra-physical consciousness or other dimensions or something that we call also sometimes intuition. And then we are getting closer also to the ideas of telepathy phenomena. Okay, so I could say in terms of different bodies, the most important, I think, it's really for us to develop them because our society has a tendency to not give value to it. So it's too much connected to physical approach. The, the, the formal academic studies are almost all based in physical aspects. Even the medicine that should be more closer to our behavior, our consciousness, our all bodies. But even the medicine has been developed much more the technology to make diagnosis, the technology to make new treatments, and not too much the development of the understanding of who we are. The video in the beginning presents a little bit these important questions for us. So I think these are points for reflection, and we can, yeah, maybe understanding a little bit more about telepathy, we can get closer to these ideas.
Yeah, that's very important, Cecil, what you said, because one of the things which is basic for us to understand how telepathy works is that we don't think with our physical brain, right? We have connections with the para brain and the communication it entails, right? We have a first question coming in our comment section here. It's from our friend Luis Henrique. Very nice, Luis Henrique, to have you here. The question is it easier to promote the telepathy phenomena when we are closer to another person, or the distance doesn't matter? And how can we improve that ability? Two questions, actually.
I can jump in here. I think Jadar was going, but then you just added to whatever I say, Jadar. So in practical terms, the distance doesn't make any difference. We are we have a tendency to think that distance will impact, because when we are perceiving things with our senses, our physical senses, distance does make a lot of difference, right? If I'm closer to something, I can see it better. If I'm very far away, or if it's out of my view, just I don't grasp that it's there. Same thing with the sound. If I'm closer, I can hear it. If I'm far away, I cannot hear it. So the physical senses, yes, they have a huge impact on distance, or distance has an impact on what we're perceiving with this physical senses. But then when we're talking about parapsychism, which is things that we perceive beyond our five senses, then distance doesn't make any difference. So in theory, it doesn't make any difference because you're just capturing energy, and energy doesn't have time and space limitations. The thing is, from my experience, if I am able to kind of focus on someone, or a subject, or another conscience, to have some kind of communication, I find it easier if I'm closer to that, or there's something that I can fine tune and really connect to that other consciousness. So, but I think it's more a psychological thing of being able to fine tune, because I'm really knowing with what I'm, or who I am connecting to. But still, that's just a physical, psychological limitation. We shouldn't be affected by the distance at all. I don't know if you want to add something, Jadar.
Yes, actually, I agree with you, and I make a suggestion. Of course, this is a book in Portuguese, but there is a of other in English. Is a book from Russell Tag, and they bring many information about experience that during the 20, 30, 70 decades about the telepathy and clairvoyance experience, including there is a interesting experiences made by Union Soviet, no, the Soviet, using two people, Karl Nikolaev and Yuri Kamensky. And the experiences are just what I'm talking about right now about the distance. One to make suggestions to other, and this other guy is they are friends, of course, and this is uh, easier to make a rapport, a connection between the both. So the one suggests some feeling, some sensation in the other guy, and they prove that it's possible. It depends of the distance. And they actually, I think it's 1,600 kilometers of distance between one of the other, and the sensation, the information was captured by the one of those guys. It's interesting to understand more about telepathy and the parapsychism. Just to add about this.
Yeah, I like to complement also connected, for example, to improve the ability. There are several techniques, but I think one aspect is good for you to try to understand if you are better in capturing information or sending information, because it can be people with different abilities or both. Yeah. So, but many times it's more common that we have easier ability or to send or to capture. And I should say, of course, you need to do some experiments with somebody else. And uh, my idea, it seems that helps for development if you try to development first what you have better. So this will probably give more feedbacks for self-feedback so that you are going to get motivated to develop more and more, and you will perceive that you are improving, maybe getting even better in the ability that you are already, maybe with some easier way to do it. So this is one aspect. I think we are going also to mention more, but this is something good to also to keep in mind. There are different people with different abilities, and also important that also we can have better connection with somebody, maybe to send information to us, maybe somebody gets our information easier. So there are different people that we have different relationship that influence in the telepathy aspect. Many times there are some stronger telepathy results when people are more closer. Okay, for example, twins, they mention they have a little bit more connections, or mother and daughter. So there are some different aspects that sometimes can be helpful. But of course, we can develop this with friends. I think is the best approach in the beginning. Yeah, so this is a starting point.
And that's very interesting, Cicero, because when you said the difference between, the question whether we are capturing, receiving information, or sending information has to do with our next question from Evelyn Malzani. Evelyn, thank you for your participation from Sweden. Maybe you have already covered this, but how can we distinguish between telepathy and intuition? And also distinguish between what thoughts are coming from me and what is coming from someone else. It's basically what Cicero has just said, right? How can we notice when we are receiving information and we are sending information? Guys, so the question is up to you. Unmute your mic.
I was studying more about telepathy because it's how can I say, not too easy, but it's an easier phenomenon that I have experienced. And normally I perceive that intuition has your in how can I say, your interpretation about the information that you catch. And telepathy normally is very clear for you as an image or as a word, and you know that you're not imagination or an interpretation of this information that you catch. Okay, I don't know if you guys can complete with other examples or experience that you have, but for me, is very clear because when I have a telepathy connection, normally I access dates, some faces or images from the other places. You know, I know that it's not my imagination or intuition.
Yeah, it's important to add, Johnny, to what you were saying that when we say energies, it's not only energies, right? We have also thoughts and sentiments involved. So here it's very important to mention the thought scene or the soulcination, which is the act or effect of sending and receiving thought scenes, right? So here we go. Our dear monitors put in the foothold the explanation of the term is the act or effect of the consciousness generating those scenes, thoughts, sentiments, and energy. So it's important to mention that, right? Because when we are in a telepathic mode, we are changing ideas, but also sentiments, right? And also emotions together with the energies. And then about the question, right? So how can I distinguish between what is coming from me and what is coming from the other? It's basically for you to map out the standard of your thirteens. For example, I have a standard of thirteens at this moment, right? So if I get a message that is contradicting or incoherent with my present thirteens, it's clear that the idea is not mine, right? It's one of the things that we can easy for us to perceive. The standard or the information or the kind of information we are receiving, it's not something that I am thinking about or I'm feeling at the moment. It's completely different. So it's most possibly it's coming from someone else. So this is one of the things I would say, which is to distinguish your thoughtonic pattern, right? What is this? The pattern, the standard, the quality of your thoughts, sentiments, and energies. This is one of the things that we can emphasize here, right? Cicero, would like to add something?
Yeah, I think when we think also about intuition, it seems that sometimes it could be what we call intuition is also telepathy, but maybe we are not very aware that that was a telepathy. Okay, so for example, somebody can send us an idea of ice cream, saying the word ice cream, but sometimes we get a message connected to it. It's not what was not exactly the word ice cream, but we want to be in a place where usually people get ice cream. So sometimes we get some part of the message, and this is connected to intuition. Something causes make influence in us to think different, to think in some direction. So and sometimes we don't know even that the origin of that what we are thinking, it was from a telepathy of somebody else. Many times maybe we don't perceive the telepathies, we just react to it. Okay, so when we are getting information in this case, so I think there are many things that we have some intuitions that could be also a type of telepathy, but I could say in this case is a particular type of telepathy that's unconsciousness. Yeah? So it's a type of telepathy that we are not very aware exactly from who it came from, the information, but something was, let's say, in the air, in the energies that we are surrounded, that we are in contact, and that we perceive, we get this information, and we have this as an intuition. Basically, the intuition is different from what we think many times, because sometimes we perceive that something changed in the way we are thinking, so we go in that direction. So many times this is more connected to intuition. So I could say telepathy in some case, they also intuition in some case also involve telepathy, but could be also getting message of something else. For example, intuition, I could go to a shop and have the intuition to buy something, or I could go to a place and I do not feel good, I prefer to leave, and then later I understand that there was a reason for it. Sometimes it's not connected to somebody sending a message to me. It was just that I perceive the energies in the environment, and I have then my perceptions or my reactions, my interpretations that could come through an intuition. Okay, so I decide maybe not to use this street today. I go to another street in the way I go to work, for example. Just an example. These sometimes are intuition, and sometimes we think it can be helpful for us when we follow some intuition. So this is connect. Not all the times the intuition will be a telepathy. Yeah, so can be other things together.
I would like to add something. Cicero, to complete that Cicero told to us, there is an important point, the interpretation of the information. Listen, you have a certain information that brings with the energy. The energy brings the information. So I have a certain information that is catched by our parabrain, our astrophysical brain. So I should or I try to put this in my brain, physical brain. So there is probably can help some have some noises during this transmission, and can sound more like intuition, as Cicero told to us. It's not a clear information. Just I just get some feeling or some idea that's about some subject, about to do something, is not exactly clear. But telepathy is very strong and clear to understand. Okay.
Very nice. João, would you like to say something or add something to what's been talked?
Yeah. I mean, that's all very interesting. I got many insights. I'll just put out some of them here. I think that one is it can get confusing about what is intuition, what is my ideas, or what is a telepathy, and it's because that's how perception works, right? I I will always translate into the knowledge that I have throughout my whole experience in this life and the previous lives, right? So let's suppose that I'm receiving a telepathy from an alien consciousness that doesn't speak any of the languages that I speak, and it's talking about, I don't know, a mathematical formula to um, travel in time. I don't have the tools to understand that message very well, and whatever I get, I'll translate it into what I understand as a language, of the languages that I speak, and of the tools that I have about, oh, what is time, what is travel, or whatever like that. So I will not exactly get the message that was transmitted to me. So in the end, it's like, okay, is this my idea or not? But then we can add those things that you were saying about, well, but this is not the pattern of things that I usually think. I'm not thinking about these topics, for example. So probably that was not my own idea that I came up with, but I was inspired by some telepathy or something like that. So I just did it, a very extreme example, to just touch on things that might happen all the time. And we do have the tools to get those informations. It's more like, okay, is this a pattern of something that I usually think? Or is this, does this information that I'm coming up with has more data than I would come up with the knowledge that I have on my own. So if you can separate that, you will be able to separate intuition from telepathy a bit. Another thing that I would like to add is on those experiments, for example, that Jader was saying that they did on the 30s, the 20s, and the 70s. Actually, it was very like procedural of, okay, I will transmit an idea to someone will get that idea, and let's see if they get the right idea. And then you would have a mathematical model to say, okay, is this just by chance, or the rate in which we are getting the information correctly is much higher than chance? Because if it's much higher than chance, then it is telepathy happening. And actually what happened was that they could get it a rate that was much higher than chance, like very frequently. It happened all the time, so there was telepathy going on. But then they had a difficulty. So what I want to come up with is it's very hard to separate what is clairvoyance or predicting the future, for example, or what is telepathy, because they were saying, okay, but the other person was receiving the information, and a couple of hours after we will get the results, and that person will know the results of what we were transmitting. So maybe that person was just having clairvoyance and saying talking about some future information that they would capture, and it was not actually telepathy. And how do you separate these things? It was really hard to come up with a model. So they actually came up with a model to separate both things, but it's not a perfect model. So I mean, all these things, we call it by different names, but in the end, it's just extra physical perception, extrasensory perception. And I think the most important thing is, what do we do with it? So just by knowing that you can have access to more information, I think it's just already a good thing for you to know. And okay, I'm perceiving something differently. It's not with my senses. Okay, what do I do with this? And I think that's when we really get something useful out of it.
That's very interesting for you to say, because I was going now to explore a bit the ideas of the telepathy in our everyday lives, and also we have a question from Murilo Vieira Lino. Murilo is here as well. Nice to have you here, Murilo. His question is how to use our telepathic capability in a cosmoetical way.
Basically, I think helping other consciousness. Listen, many of these books that I presented to you explore the telepathy and clairvoyance and many other phenomena, experience made by NASA, by Soviet Union, but what the proposal was espionage, was spy other countries, and war. It's not for the good or the will of the humanity. It's just to explore other countries. And the cosmoetical way, I think it's help other consciousness. Doesn't matter if it's from other planets or from Earth. Basically from Earth, but I think this is the best way to use your parapsychic. Not only telepathy, but all senses that you have.
That's very interesting, because João was talking about the complexity of the phenomena as a whole, right? When we experience a phenomena, is sometimes not only one phenomenon, but involves other phenomena happening at the same time, simultaneously. And I was thinking about this question from Murilo, and occurred me to think about the empathic assistance, right? Or when we use empathy in our assistance, especially not only here in the intraphysical environment, but also in the extraphysical environment. Because here in the intraphysical environment, it's easy sometimes to have an empathic relationship with the person we are assisting, right? First, because we are willing to assist the person, and there is a relationship, or might have a relationship, a clear relationship between us. But when we are dealing with someone from the extraphysical environment, sometimes you don't know who you are talking to or where the person is coming from. So it's a totally unknown for us who you're dealing with. And when we are able to use our parapsychic abilities in this kind of communication, be it in a clairvoyance or clairaudience or in a telepathic way, this builds up a very important empathic relationship we have with extraphysical consciousness. I have this through clairaudience, and I realize that when we are exchanging thoughts or exchanging feelings and ideas, whichever these feelings and ideas might be, we know a bit from the energetic part from the consciousness or what they are thinking, the ideas, right? And it's when it's of course distinguished by me as no, it's not my ideas. I'm really having these ideas from the extraphysical environment, from a consciousness. When it's clear for me, it's very important for me as information from the consciousness I'm talking to, I'm dealing with, I'm connecting with, right? So this empathic assistance for me, it's extremely important for our relationship with the assisted, right? Because this way we know we are talking to, we know the complaints, we know the sufferings or the pains or whatever might involve in our assistance. But it's something that I would like to highlight, which is the empathic assistance.
I think it's very, very important. And it was interesting, this question of Murilo, because it comes to mind many times when we deal about the tema telepathy and ethics or cosmoethics. It comes much easier negative examples. For example, how to influence people using telepathy. This is very common in the internet. You find a lot of things like this. There are even books and things that describe how to influence others. And this is, of course, not connected to a cosmoetical approach. And I think for cosmoetical approach, maybe it's interesting to develop telepathy to get more messages in moments that you are working with assistance. This idea that Mari mentioned, the empathy with others, but really to work more helping others. So if you get connected to this pattern of energies, this standard, if you develop yourself, your way of thinking to help others, many times you are going to receive some information that could be helpful in that moment to for you to use to do some approach. So sometimes you have telepathy, you don't know exactly, only as an example, you don't know if it's better to externalize energy to somebody else in the frontal chakra or to the cardio chakra. So sometimes if you are really thinking with these empathies that Mario mentioned before, if you are really thinking in the assistance, if you are connected with helpers, extra-physical consciousness that are working together in this assistential mechanism, it seems that the chances, the possibilities for you to get connected to telepathy is higher. So sometimes you can have telepathies that will confirm to you, the best is to sterilize, for example, to a frontal chakra, the energies. But you are not trying to influence the other people. You are just trying to help the others. Okay? This could be also sometimes with an idea. You are giving a course, for example, or talking in an event, let's talk about, like we are doing now, and sometimes can come to you a word or something, a thema that should be important to be presented in that exactly moment. So this is type of telepathy that's very cosmoetical. You are using with very nice purposes. You are developing your parapsychic abilities with this way that you are basically receiving information that will be very, very useful in your interassistentiality activities. And then I think the curve, the possibilities to develop this, to send information in a cosmoetical way, it's basically also very connected to your way of thinking. So many times when you think more connected with extra-physical helpers, I think then you are getting closer to the moment that you are more able to easily send information to others but maybe not too much as an intrusive way. We need to think much about this when it's exactly the right moment to send an information, because even though can be a good information, but sometimes the moment is not the best for that person, and sometimes we have no good idea of this. So this is a little bit more that is in not so easy to distinguish what is an intrusion, even though we are with good intentions, but we are being intrusive in somebody else. This is of course not good, not cosmetic. So it's in these aspects I'd like to describe this tema.
Good. And we have one more question coming in our comment section, which is from Darina, right? Darina asks, what are your thoughts on the Holy Spirit? Okay, here we have a difference in paradigm, Darina, right? Because we're talking about the consciential paradigm, which doesn't address religious matters, right? It's not that we don't think they are important. It's just because we don't address them in our research. So I am unable to tell you anything about the Holy Spirit because I'm not in it. But maybe João would like to talk or mention something about this, about Darina's question.
Yeah, I mean, I have not studied theology. I did have I was raised in Catholic education and a Catholic school, so I do know what Darina is talking about. What I think is, well, there's some similarities. I think people have different perceptions and different ways of understanding the world. And we're talking about some entity that doesn't have a body, right? And is communicating with us at some point. So there is some interaction about what we're talking about. If someone has the experience of being communicating to the Holy Spirit, well, it's probably telepathy that they're having that communication with. I cannot tell if it's the Holy Spirit or what extra physical consciousness is communicating to that person, but it should be not using the senses, right? And like telepathy. So I think that's a good way to understand it. And I'll leave it here.
Okay, Darina.
All right. Just to add,
Okay.
for example, in Conscientiology, we use a scientific approach. So we disconnect, for example, these meanings of somebody's some extraphysical consciousness. We disconnect the consciousness itself with the God, for example. So when we deal with the Holy Spirit, we are dealing sometimes connecting this concept with God. There are some relationship. And for telepathy, for example, we don't need, in this case, God itself. Okay, so this, in a more scientific approach, we do not have the connection of what we experiment with the figure, with the meaning of God. So this is more the approach we have here.
And it's also important to say to Darina the following thing. The most important here, Darina, is your vision, your experience, your thoughts on the matter, right? Because, for example, we are talking about telepathy, which is a kind of communication we have, energetically speaking, right? In which involves also thoughts, sentiments, emotions, and feelings and ideas. And from one person to another person, we can have telepathy from one person in the intraphysical reality, but also in extraphysical reality. So maybe having this information with you yourself will be able to relate this to the Holy Spirit and how it works, right? So you can have your own answers. Okay, let's go to the next question, which coming again from Luis Henrique. Very good, Luis Henrique, participating effectively in our debate today. He asks, usually telepathy refers to those scenes, right, thoughts, sentiments, and energies, which were captured at the same time they were generated, or it also includes those from some time ago, or even anticipating ones being created, right? So the question is, translating these questions is more or less like, do we have messages coming from the past or future? A time to reflect?
Yes, it's a combination of phenomena that is more connected in this case to precognition and retrocognition. So retro when you got information from the past, and precognition that will be created. So some event that didn't happen yet. Energetically, many things are happening. So sometimes after some event, there is a lot of energy remaining, even though sometimes people have left the environment, but the energies are there. And in the same way, so this makes us possible to get information uh, as a retrocognition, for example. Okay, we got some information that already have happened, and we just got an information without somebody else telling things about the event that happened. And the same, more or less the same idea with energies. Things are in a probability to happen. Many times energetically, things are happening before. So there are some things that are already, the energy is going that direction, and then it happens. Sometimes when we move, it's very simple. When we move to another city, sometimes we are putting a lot of our energy in that movement, going to the other city. We watch YouTube videos about that city. We learn, we talk with people. Sometimes we get connections to the other city, and then we move. So this is something that we are already preparing energetically, the something that will happen. Somebody that gets contact with energies can capture these energies, even though we are not yet living there. Somebody could say, I thought you live here, but maybe you are planning to live there. So this could be connected to energies and could be captured. But this not necessarily all this needs to be connected to a telepathy. In my perception, telepathy is more in the moment, really. So these are other phenomena, and my perception is telepathy just happens. Somebody sent an information, you got the information. This is the typical telepathy in my perception. Okay, can have maybe some difference, can be some variations. I'm not very aware if there are so many details, but I could say the normal telepathy is exactly in the moment that you get. Okay, I need to research more deeply. I don't know if my colleagues want to add something.
Very nice, people. And now we have some events coming up at ASSIPI. So it's important to say that next week we are going to kick off the series of lessons that's part of this course given by instructor Adriana Lopez, whose name is 11 Evolutionary Senses and Regressive Counter Senses. It happens from April 2nd to September 4th. It's important to say that this course has 10 modules, sorry. Every month we have one module Saturday and Sunday, right? 3 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday from 9 to 12 p.m. Adriana will be talking about the evolutionary senses and regressive counter senses. You will be able, right? Each of the courses highlights here evolutionary sense as a level of maturation experienced, regressive counter sense as ignorance about evolutionary dynamics, technique of the counterpoint sense counter sense applied to self-research, and personal repertoire of senses and counter senses. That is a very good course, a very good topic that is valuable to our self-research, right? The price is 580, the whole course, the 10 lessons, and you can apply for this course. You can register at assipi.org/launcher. Okay, that's very important. But also saying that the second edition of our entry course, Basis of the Parapsychic Development, is coming up April 16, right, on Saturdays, every Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. This course has 13 lessons talking about many of the parapsychic phenomena and correlated subjects to parapsychic with the basic questions. Where do we come from? Who we are? Where are we going to? How do we evolve? So these are basic questions that show us part of our parapsychic reality. right? One of the highlights of the course, so we have 6 of them. Use this life to get to know yourself, like self-research, make your own life's project, right? Reconciliation through healthy coexistence, and deepen the understanding of yourself and others, and take charge of your personal recycling, understand multidimensional life. This course has a full vision of what parapsychism is in the relationship with our multidimensional relationship. So it's coming up on April 16. Hope to see you there and register for this course. You won't regret. Right, people. So we are approaching to the end of our debate today. Let's wrap up with the final considerations. João.
Well, I think it's the main aspects were already said. I'll just end up my participation. Thanking you for the invitation, thanking everybody that's watching us and communicating telepathically to us. I think we have a good vibe coming from everyone. The questions that were put shows that when we were discussing something that is important to whoever is watching us. And thanks for the insights and sharing all the knowledge that you have on the topic. It was very useful to me.
Jader.
Okay, I think I have just one thing to add. If the guys want to know more about telepathy, can participate of our course, including the basis of the parapsych development. We can explore more about soft things and about many parapsychic issues. So that's it. We have just a short time to explain more about telepathy. That's I consider a very complex phenomenon because we don't have only one phenomenon happen when you use our parapsychism. We have many phenomena happen at the same time as John presents to ours in our debate.
Yeah, nice. This idea was more or less what I was thinking to say now is that for example, when we develop our extrasensory perceptions, basically our flexibility on dealing with energies, we can have more uh, just more perceptions, and telepathy is one of them. So it's very nice also, for people to do this type of courses like base of psychic development, that I think should be interesting for development of many aspects of our consciousness. Another tip I'd like to say is to follow also this Let's Talk About in the ASSIPI English channel. There is a playlist with several other topics that maybe will be interesting for you also to have a look. So give this the tip. Thank you.
Very good. I'd like to thank you very much for your talkers, for accepting coming in today. And it's very good to have you here, people, and talk about this topic. And well, yeah, as Jada said, this topic is very broad. You can really explore, and there's a lot to talk about telepathy because it's an everyday phenomenon. It's every day we change telepathic ideas, even though sometimes we are not aware of them, but they are happening the same. They happen anyway, right? So it's part of our dimensional reality relationship, right? What we have everyday life. That was very, very good to talk about this. And okay, people, I think it's time to say goodbye and telling you that our next Let's Talk will take place on April 24th. And we'll be talking about clairaudience, right? The ability to hear the extra-physical dimensions. Okay, so hope to see you there. Have a nice Sunday. Good to have you here today. Thank you for your questions. See you next Let's Talk. Bye bye.